it's on the altar. Yeah, it's on the altar. Well, it's just you and me. I don't feel I can start singing when Brahma is singing. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitaclass Ashtottara Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitaclass Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Nanda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, one second. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are on the last verse of chapter 17, page 658. And we'll begin chapter 18. On this 22nd day of August 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are on the last verse of chapter 17 entitled The Divisions of Faith. This is text 28 on page 658 in most of your books. 658. Ashadyahutam dattam tapastaptam kutam chayat asadityuchyate pata nachatat pretjanohiha Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchyate parta nachatat pretyano iha. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchyate parta nachatat pretyano iha. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchyate parta nachatat pretyano iha. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchyate parta nachatat pretyano iha. Give it a shot, Ernest. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchyate parta nachatat pretyano iha. Ashraddhaya, without faith, hutam, offered in sacrifice, dattam, given, tapaha, penance, taptam, executed, kritam, performed, cha, also, yat, that which, asat, false, iti, thus, uchyate, is said to be, parta, O son of Pita, na, never, cha, also, tat, that, precha, after death, na, u, nor, iha, in this life. Okay, time out. I didn't notice, but let me give it a shot. Generally, this has to be facing. You have to run over there. Doesn't have as good a receiver as the ones on the altar. Translation: anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pita, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next. Purport: anything done without the transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless. Therefore, in this verse, it is declared that such activities are abominable. Everything should be done for the Supreme in Krishna consciousness. Without such faith, and without the proper guidance, there can never be any fruit. In all the Vedic scriptures, faith in the Supreme is advised. In the pursuit of all Vedic instructions, the ultimate goal is the understanding of Krishna. No one can obtain success without following this principle. Therefore, the best course is to work from the very beginning in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the way to make everything successful. In the conditional state, people are attracted to worshipping demigods, ghosts, or yakshas like Kuvera. The mode of goodness is better than the modes of passion and ignorance, but one who takes directly to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way. And that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find the proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme. When that faith matures, in course of time, it is called love of God. This love is the ultimate goal of the living entities. One should therefore take to Krishna consciousness directly. That is the message of this 17th chapter. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So the title of this chapter was The Divisions of Faith. We heard a little bit about faith in the beginning and a little bit about faith in the end. And in the middle we heard a lot about the different activities of sacrifice, penance, or austerity and charity in different modes of nature. We also heard about eating foods in different modes of nature. But then the key element in all of this is the element of faith. Sometimes there's no faith, or there's a faith, you're not conscious of it as faith. If you're just in the ordinary course of events in life, in material life, you still have to perform sacrifice, you still have to perform austerity. Charity as such, you may or may not perform. But certainly austerity is a part of life. Everyone performs it. The question is, what is your goal in performing that? And that will tell us exactly where your faith is at. Because people don't realize it, but when they get up in the morning and go to work, this is a great austerity. Working is a great austerity. But even a greater austerity is not working. So one way or another, you're going to have to work hard in this world in order to just maintain. One of the things about when you have an organization or a society organized on the basis of, what can I say, greed, it's certainly not based on the goal of self-realization or welfare for the people. It's more or less a dog-eat-dog society that we live in. Then one of the basic themes is betrayal. I mean, the whole material enterprise is betrayal. Just what we always read about, how ordinary people, they work in order to get sense gratification. You remember those 4 things: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So, in any kind of civilized world, there's some kind of religion, but that religion can be motivated by material motivations. Material welfare here, prosperity and peace, and going to heaven after death and enjoying there eternally. That's material motivation. And with the advent of Kali Yuga and the progress of science and technology, people ultimately seem to have less faith in God and transcendence. They have faith in technology. That seems to be providing all of the goods and the services and the wonders of technology that we see around us. So you come across with basically those middle 2, artha and kama, working hard to make money in order to enjoy or prosper or something like that. So where does faith come in? Well, it comes in all the time. You get up in the morning, you're maybe 34 years old, and you don't think twice about it. You know that you're going to get up, you're going to take breakfast, and you're going to feel strength to go and do your work. But at a certain point, something happens, you get older, and the body doesn't work. Something's not working like it should. You get sick, or you get an injury, or something happens. So that faith that you put in the body is going to be more or less today like it was yesterday, and that's just going to go on. It doesn't go on like that. The material world, there's always something being thrown at you. We talk about these threefold miseries, difficulties which are based on your own body and mind. The adhyatmic klesha, they're called. Adhyatmic klesha. So, certainly, I mean, this body is a very delicate machine. It can have some physical difficulty, or you can have some mental difficulty, and you can be dysfunctional, overwhelmed with anxiety or whatever, right? Then suddenly you can't do what you thought you could do. The world becomes a very frightening place, right? So your blithe spirit that you had when you were 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, suddenly you're 25, 26, or 35, 36, or 45, And it's not like it was. Your hopes are dashed, right? Adidaivik miseries. They can come in huge portions. We had was it last year? I think it was just last year. We had this huge hurricane in Houston. It was like they call it 1,000 years. They hoped it was only once every 1,000 years. It may come again this year, the way that they're great. So, people are just living their lives, and we live in Houston, and suddenly they found they're living on a floodplain. They didn't think that. The whole life is uprooted. And then they found that all of those big industries, refining oil and everything, in Texas they were very liberal, right? About regulation, having a big refinery just 2 miles from a residence area. So now there's all these toxins in the water, In other words, the faith that you placed in your little routine is betrayed. The job, you lose the job, So this is what material life is all about. There's always some upheaval in the material world. That's a direct quote from Srila Prabhupada. And so this is not a place, the material world is not a place where you can find real peace and happiness. You can find the illusion of it for some time, but it's always, always, always dashed eventually. So, therefore, putting our faith in the material elements and the material body and some kind of socio-political arrangement is foolish. This is what is called Maya, the illusion of stability, the illusion of prosperity, the illusion of. But everything is like described like in a river. You'll have like a lotus flower, and on the lotus flower has some kind of little wax on its petals, so that water doesn't accumulate there and soak in, and then the water beads up, and a little wave comes and then it flows off. So that's the nature of our life in this material world. Everything is very tentative. So therefore, where we put our faith is a key decision in our lives, and that's why we need guidance from these books of wisdom of the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and from those who are living a life according to those books, and who have realized the transcendence, realized the reality, unchanging reality beneath all of this bhavasagra. The little meaning of bhavasagra, sagra means ocean. Now ocean itself means never steady, right? You just walk out here and you see that the waves are always coming. It's never a placid lake, even though it's called the Pacific Ocean. It may be relatively Pacific, which means peaceful, because there weren't all the storms in the Atlantic. That's what they call the Pacific. But having an ocean itself means, and if you get on a boat, anyone who's, I don't even go near the ocean. I mean, not for that. But anyway, I might as well be in Oklahoma. But the idea is that's why it's a metaphor. So bhava means change. The ocean of change. And the main change is birth, old age, disease, and death, repeatedly. Very traumatic, each one of them. So, is there another state of being where we're not subject to all of this change, to all of these threefold miseries? I forgot to mention the third one, adibautic. That can often be the worst. Miseries caused by other living beings. I didn't have to go through World War I or II. I don't think anyone in this room did. Maybe you remember World War II? No, we're the same age. But there's always like a war happening somewhere else, right? In your lifetime, was there ever a place where there's never a war? Maybe at least skirmishes are going on, or the threat of war. That's can be the worst. World War II. Imagine living through that in Europe. I mean, even if you happen to not be getting bombed at the moment, there's always the threat of war. It's just horrible. That's adibautic, other living beings, mostly other human beings, causing you miseries. So we got those three. You're under threat or you're suffering. Adidaivik, adiatmic, adibautic. Miseries caused by your own body and mind, not by the devas, natural disturbances, earthquakes could happen at any second right here. The big one, right? But we tend to forget. We're good. We live in SanDiego. The weather is perfect. Well, what happened this year? Why is it so hot? Right here?
We're lucky because, you know, in the northern hemisphere, the hurricanes go from east to west. So you see them, they're coming up the Baja, and they always go off. We've had several go off. Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I felt much better just not knowing that. Isn't that how we deal with most of these things? I feel great. I don't have to know about it. You know, the ostrich in the sand type of solution. So the point is that these books are the most practical books and necessary books for our life here, because they give us a clue, a tried and true system for getting out of this ocean of birth and death and threat and you know, samsara. You know, that's the idea. So, but it depends on faith, because the way out means we have to have truth in the transcendence. And then we learn that transcendence is a person, the absolute person, God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that there's a whole other world out there, of which this world is a reflection. This is the lesson of chapter 15. How could it not be, when you think logically, because it's full of philosophy. We're persons. Is there anything out, you look around you, everything has a cause or a series of causes. There's what we call the material cause. In other words, part of the causes of this building are the materials it's built with. Without the cement, without the rebar and the wires and whatever else went into this, there's no building. So that's part of the cause. But clearly, you just bring all of the building materials and set them down, it's not going to become a building. So what else you need? You need the effective cause, which is the several-fold. One is the idea put on the blueprint, right? Isn't it the architect? So that has to be there. And then you have to have the living entities in the form of the workers who are ready, the contractors who are ready to carry out the orders and all of that stuff. So that's all part of the cause, you see. So there's nothing in the result that wasn't there in the causes, meaning that nothing got built without some intelligence behind it, saying do it this way, that way, guiding the hands, guiding the, you know, right? There's an intelligence behind everything. So, therefore, here we are sitting here, we're persons, each one of us. We have hands, we have legs, we have all kinds of senses, intelligence, personality, likes, dislikes, activities. We can also be defined, if you think about a person's name, there's a form, there's qualities, characteristics, and activities. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. Call it Lila, you know, just for argument's sake. So we all have personality. That means that that our cause is a cause that has to have personality, the ultimate cause, the cause of all causes. Now this is not, there's all kinds of transcendentalists who argue that point. Said no, you know, ultimately everything is zero, as the demons asked. It all came about by chance, by atoms interacting. Over many trillions of years, trillions of years. And then eventually there came to be one, you know, unit that was self-replicating or something, some, you know, very simple living entity. You know. And then more trillions of years came, and gradually more until this is what we have. That's evolution. There's no person behind there. Now, you can't physically look back and see what it is, but this is where these transcendental science of yoga comes in, that of bringing back the veil that's blinding our eyes and distorting our vision because we're not pure enough, because our minds are not disturbed. And you consult with those who have practiced this yoga, who have seen beyond this thing, had a different way of seeing. The third eye, you know, is kind of a metaphor. It means seeing with transcendental vision, just like we say in the Bhagavad. So much is about seeing. 13th chapter we already went through. That those who understand the super soul and the body, you know, and they see everyone equally as a soul, they really see. There's so much about seeing, rather than seeing according to the external body. Racism, tribalism, xenophobism, right? This is gross ignorance. It causes so much strife within the world. So how you see, if you're able to refine your vision, or learn from one who has that refined vision. Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the fourth chapter, text 34. How can you understand all of these varieties of things he's talking about, different kinds of yagyas or sacrifices? And broadly, how can you understand these transcendental subject matters? So the answer is, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upidikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. Darshana means one who has seen, and tattva is the truth. Means the transcendental truth beyond these varieties. So the formula is, if you want to know the truth of what I just said, tad vidhi, mean you want to know that? Tad vidhi paripatena means to surrender, to, pariprashnena, to be inquisitive and to serve. To surrender, to inquire and serve. Who? The tattvadarshi, one who has seen the truth. Tad vidhi paripashnena upidikshanti te jnanam. Such a person can impart the knowledge to you because he has seen the truth. And his heart is open, and he wants you to know that truth for your welfare. That also has to be there. So that's what these books are all about. These are not ordinary books. These books were produced by Srila Prabhupada for one purpose: not to become famous, not to make money, not to go on tour and book tour, but to give us a way of understanding this knowledge for our eternal benefit. Because that's one of the characteristics of the great souls. They're burning with compassion. They understand the futility and really the suicidality of this ordinary material life. It's an emergency situation. It really is. It's an emergency situation. Now, I'd like to give you an analogy. We can all see this phenomenon of how when your intelligence is covered by these modes of nature, you don't see the urgency of this kind of activity, even on the material side, because you have intelligence in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everything is divided in that way. So we have the capitalist system, which is based on accumulating money, investing it, and exploiting the earth, and exploiting other people, and accumulating more money, and like that. So now we've come to the point where 97% of the scientists who study these things, just on the basics, they say, yeah, we've got anthropogenic global warming or climate change. All of this burning of fossil fuels has changed our climate. And we're seeing it right here. I mean, I've been here almost 30 years. Climate has changed. When I first came, we had a rainy season, maybe mid-December to mid-January, and it didn't rain the rest of the year. Well, then, now sometimes it doesn't rain at all at that time. It rains at other times. All of this extreme heat, we never had it here. And this is minor compared to what you go north, and the Arctic, the ice is melting. There's one guy just wrote a book, Farewell to Ice. Farewell to ice, like farewell to arms, farewell to ice. And if that ice melts, there's all kinds of, in the so-called permafrost. That's all, carbon. Those are all living, plants that are just frozen there. That means that they're not, decaying and giving off their carbon dioxide. So if that all melts, and then you have other stuff melting where the methane is in, that's even worse. That can all come out all at once. In other words, they're all ringing these bells. It's very urgent. We got to do something. Now what's going on? Just the opposite. We got a crazy president who's turning back the clock. Now he's going to no more restrictions on coal burning. What? Coal is like, that should be phased out entirely. So why is that? I mean, is it just like they poke the eyes and what's the point? Because there's so much in the mode of ignorance and passion, that they don't care. It's just like they came out, that Exxon, they knew about the result, because these people have their own scientists. They knew about the result of all this oil burning and gas, and what's going on back in the 80s, and they suppressed it. They suppressed it. Somebody made a decision somewhere in the boardroom. Well, it's not going to be very good for the bottom line, because people are going to want us to slow down the oil production and the gas production. But that's our business. So the stockholders voted down. That means their knowledge, their understanding is covered by the mode of passion. We're already 45, 50 years old. By the time it gets worse, we'll be dead. So who cares? We'll make more money. You see how demonic that is? That's right out of the 16th chapter. So much money do I have today, so much I will have tomorrow. He's my enemy, and I'll kill him, and I'll, you know, like, that's who's running the show around here. But it's a metaphor for each one of our lives, where we don't see the urgency of becoming Krishna conscious, so that we won't suffer a whole lot in the future. Better that I just enjoy now and forget about the future. That's the mode of ignorance. That's the ostrich putting in the head. So, therefore, it is said, and I'll keep quoting this verse, as Prabhupada did often, every so often. Labdva sudurlamam idam bahusam bhavande manushamata damanichamapiya dhira turnam hitetana matedana mrityava nikshaya sayabhishayakala sarvataksya. So this is a verse spoken by Krishna himself, I think, in the 11th canto. It was definitely from the 11th canto. And what it means, and Bhagavatam is filled with verses like this. But this one is especially poignant. He says, you have achieved this rare human life after many, many transmigrations through lower species. That's the evolution that we understand. The bodies are already there. The forms are there. It's not that the forms evolve. Anyway, we'll get into that later. But we've come up, and now we have the human life. Sudurlabham, difficult to get. Bahu sambhavanta, after many, many births. Labdaba sudurlamidam bahu manusham, human form, like a man. Manusham, same word. Artadam, here's that word arti. Remember, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So in that context, it means money. But artha can mean anything of value. So here it means artadam. It can give the most valuable thing, which is simply put your liberation from the round of suffering called samsara, birth, death, old age, and disease, and your return back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world, never to face this world of change again, to your eternal situation. That's what it can give. No other form can give it. So how do I get that value? How do I cash in the lottery ticket? That's what this verse is about. So he says, but like all other forms, it's anityam. It's temporary. Everyone knows that, right? It can go at any moment, certainly after old age. So one has to be dhira. This is the key word. Dhira, sober-minded. Don't be intoxicated with the phantasmagoria of Maya, and don't divert your attention. One-pointed, bhavasayatmaka buddhi. Time is wasting. So, what should we do? The second half of the verse. Turnam, quickly, without delay, yateta, strive. Turnam yateta, as long as you haven't died yet, death is over your shoulder, anumityu yavat, as long as you have your wits about you, your senses about you, in other words, use the assets you have, to strive for nikshaya, the ultimate good, which simply put, again, is purifying one's senses, one's mind, one's intelligence through the process of yoga, specifically bhakti yoga, and to the point where one can remember Krishna at every moment, and escape from this, make this our last birth, and go back to Godhead. That's described repeatedly in Bhagavad Gita. Mamupetya punā janma dukkāliyam ashāshvatam nama. If one comes to me, says Krishna, he never has to return to this world full of misery. Dukkāliyam. You see? One who does so is a Mahatma, is a great soul. But he gives the means to do it. Because after all, Vishaya Kolatar, in all those other births he mentioned at the beginning of the verse, we've been through millions of them. Up and then back, up and then back. We've enjoyed every variety of sense gratification. We've already been there and done that, and it hasn't helped us in our project to get out of this world. Rather, it's kept us here. So this is the basic lesson, and every chapter is geared to that, and Prabhupada makes it very clear in his purports. So anything we do, the last verse that we just read, anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance, or any other kind of thing that we do, without faith in the Supreme, and without a motive and a means of using it to contact and open up, revive our relationship with the Supreme, which means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is impermanent. It's called asat, and is useless both in this life and the next. Worse than useless, it's positively harmful. So that's the end of this chapter, and now we're going to begin the next chapter, which is the conclusion and the perfection of renunciation. And especially the latter part of this chapter gives very conclusive instructions we should all know. Okay. Any questions or comments on these? Damana, why don't you get the, or maybe you can do it, Zach. Get the mic in case we have questions. We have a few more minutes here. All right, we're beginning chapter 18, entitled Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text 1. Arjuna Vacha Sannyasasya Mahabaho Tattvam Ichchami Veditum Tyagasya Cha Vrishikesha Pratagkeshinashudana. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses. Purport. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. In every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. The same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service, yoginam abhisarvesham. Of all yogis or transcendentalists, one who always thinks of me within himself is the best. This is the last verse of the 6th chapter. In the next 6 chapters, pure devotional service and its nature and activity were discussed. In the third 6 chapters, knowledge, renunciation, the activities of material nature, and transcendental nature, and devotional service were described. It was concluded that all acts should be performed in conjunction with the Supreme Lord, represented by the words Om Tat Sat, which indicate Vishnu, the Supreme Person. The third part of the Bhagavad Gita has shown that devotional service and nothing else is the ultimate purpose of life. This has been established by citing past acharyas and the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Certain impersonalists consider themselves to have a monopoly on the knowledge of the Vedanta Sutra. But actually the Vedanta Sutra is meant for understanding devotional service, for the Lord himself is the composer of the Vedanta Sutra, and he is its knower. That is described in the 15th chapter. In every scripture, every Veda, devotional service is the objective. That is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. As in the 2nd chapter, a synopsis of the whole subject matter was described. So in the 18th chapter also, the summary of all instruction is given. The purpose of life is indicated to be renunciation and attainment of the transcendental position above the 3 material modes of nature. Arjuna wants to clarify the 2 distinct subject matters of the Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation or tyaga and the renounced order of life, sannyas. Thus he is asking the meaning of these 2 words. Two words used in this verse to address the Supreme Lord, Rishikesha and Keshinashudana, are significant. Rishikesha is Krishna, the master of all senses, who can always help us attain mental serenity. Arjuna requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he, Arjuna, can remain equipoised. Yet he has some doubts, and doubts are always compared to demons. He therefore addresses Krishna as Keshinashudana. Keshi was a most formidable demon who was killed by the Lord. Now Arjuna is expecting Krishna to kill the demon of doubt. So this is called the perfection of renunciation, because ultimately it's our attachment to things in this world that keep us coming back again and again. So renunciation is a natural state that develops as we progress in our quest for enlightenment. And Krishna consciousness is so powerful that while there is plenty of tyaga, or literal renunciation of things, more important is the vairagya, which is the loss of the attachment for those things. One of them is literal renunciation. You separate it. And certain things we renounce out of him. No intoxication, no meat eating, fish, and like that. So that's real tyaga. That's a basic principle. But underlying that that literal renunciation, and a more basic principle is this vairagya. And the difference is this, is that in order to give up, I mean, people are trying to give up intoxication like crazy, right? They're finding themselves with a, what do they call it, a monkey on their back? Right? What is the opioid crisis? Somehow or other, I'm addicted to this stuff, you know, and I can't live without it. And we go into withdrawal, you know. This is. So if I could just give it up, that's tyaga. It would be a great peace in my life, you know, hopefully. But better to be in a situation where you don't want it at all, isn't it? I don't have an opioid crisis. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't need tea. I don't need coffee. You know, and I certainly don't need any kind of meat. You know, I once did when I was hungry. If I didn't have a hamburger, you know, I didn't want some vegetarian stuff. You know, back when I was 15 years old, I remember asking my mother, "This is all very nice, but where's the meat?" You know, oh God, that's where I was at. You know, so you get kind of addicted. You have to have that. So if you can develop, and we know now, I mean, not just on the medical level, it's just not good for you. Now they tell us cured meats are definitely causing cancer, right? If you have all, you know, sausages and bacon and all this stuff, delicatessen meat, it's not good. Why didn't they tell us, you know, 50 years ago when I used to be eating my pastrami sandwich every day? They knew, you know. So the idea is that nothing material is good for you. We're all addicted, even if you're addicted to, you know, the codependence of people, and you know, this a million different things. It's not just drugs like that. It's anything material you can become infatuated with, and you have to have it. You know, sex can be an addiction. Yeah. So Krishna consciousness gives you a natural vairagya by turning your attraction to Krishna. It's a wholesome thing. Like Prabhupada talks about addiction. He says, we have to be, who do you, in his conversation with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Prabhupada had this incredible interaction with the Beatles, mostly George Harrison. But at a certain point, he had his conversation in England at his estate. He lived on John Lennon's estate for a few months. And naturally, he had this talk with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, who is still famous, right? And they wanted, you know, the question, well, how do we know who's a real guru? You know, because that came up. He said, oh, you have to find that person who's most addicted to Krishna, because it was obvious they were addicts, you know. But it's for sure. And you read the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his close associates, and you see that's exactly what it's like. They couldn't stop talking about Krishna. The kirtans went on all night, you know, and the effects almost seemed like addiction. They would pass out, you know, and they would, you know, be crying and all the symptoms. It seemed like it was a disease, but it's not. It's the greatest healthy state for the soul, you know, to be addicted to Krishna. And just like the chanting of the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna. So sometimes devotees chant for hours and hours. You know, we have these 24-hour kirtans or kirtan melas, you know, and you really can go on, you know, when the mind kind of accepts the holy name and there's nothing else to do. And after a while, I say, yeah, pretty nectar, you know, and now I'm feeling it, you know. And after it's all over and you've chanted for 8 hours, you know, maybe with a small break, you know, a little. What's the downside? Where's the, you know, where's the withdrawal symptoms? There isn't any. The point is, there's no downside. It's all completely wholesome. So this kind of addiction, it has to replace the other addiction. Transcendental methadone. Let's call it like that. I don't know if I get into trouble. But we talk about renunciation. What we renounce matter on the basis of becoming attracted to Krishna. You can't just renounce material things. No meat, no intoxication, no other secondary. And then what's the positive side? No positive side. You just sit there. You know, as Krishna says, what will repression accomplish? Nothing. You just go nuts. You know, that's the renunciation of the guy thrown into solitary confinement. that's known to be torture, you know. But this is not torture, though some people may see it like that. This is wholesome, you know, giving up the lowest thing for the higher thing. That's the idea. So that perfection of renunciation will eventually come out here. That you know, Krishna consciousness is filled with all kinds of sensory stimuli. You come to a festival, there's the deities, the fragrances of the incense and the flowers, what to speak of the prasadam, the sounds, the sights, the touch. You're touching the lamps and everything, you know. All the senses are engaged, and it's all completely wholesome. All in the, not the mode of goodness, it's a transcendental mode. And that, if you can become attracted to, that's your eternal life opening up right there. And this is lower attractions in the modes that are disease condition that need to be reformed. And that will be explained in this chapter. Okay, if there's no discussion there, we will begin. We'll pick that up, text 2, on Monday. Just a little plug for Balaram's Appearance Day coming up on Saturday. Wonderful festival starting at what, 5:30, like that. Always a very special. I'll probably relate one chapter. One of my favorite pastimes of Krishna is actually Balaram killing Dravida gorilla. There was a gorilla. Actually, his name is Dravida. But when I tell the story, I kind of just edit it a little bit, so it becomes Dravida. Anyway. It's very dramatic. All right, now we're going to read from the Nectar of Devotion. Still in that chapter, Krishna consciousness surpasses all liberation. Liberation is highly coveted, you know, break out of birth and death, but Krishna consciousness is so wonderful that people, they don't even want that. It comes as a byproduct. So he just quoted one verse of many where a devotee is saying, I don't want these 4 kinds of liberation. There's 4 kinds of Salokya, to live on the same planet as Vishnu. Sarupya, have the same form as Vishnu, 4 hands, you know, eternal. Sarshti, to have the same opulence as Vishnu. And Samipya, to always live near to God. But the devotee is so overwhelmed with the bliss of just serving Krishna that he doesn't care. I mean, I'll stay here or go there, wherever you want me. I don't care if I get these liberations or not. Similarly, in the 6th canto, 14th chapter, verse 5 of Bhagavatam, King Parikshit inquires from Shukadev, my dear Brahman, I understand that the demon Vritrasura was a greatly sinful person and that his mentality was completely absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How did he develop to such a perfectional stage of devotional service to Narayan? I have heard that even great persons who have undergone severe austerities and who are liberated with full knowledge must strive to become devotees of the Lord. It's understood that such persons are very rare and almost never to be seen. So I am astonished that Vritrasura became such a devotee. So let's see, is he going to tell about Vritrasura? Well, just a quick summary of this pastime. Vritrasura is one of these demons who's really a devotee inside. You know, even Hiranyakashipu ultimately was a devotee. He was suffering one of these 3 bursts of demons. So Vritrasura, there was a fellow named Chitraketu. This is told in the 6th canto. And Chitraketu was a great king. He had many wives, but he couldn't get a son. You know, and he was in great anxiety because he had to have an heir. So then one Muni, I forget who was, Agastya Muni or Parvat Muni, came and he gave a blessing. He put some empowered some bowl of milk. He said, you give it to your favorite wife and she'll get pregnant with your son. And he also gave the name of the son, and the name of the son would be Harsha Shoka. Now Harsha Shoka means jubilation, lamentation. That's what Harsha Shoka means. And Chitraketu said, oh yeah, well all kids do that. You know, they please their parents and then they aggravate their parents, so that's no big deal, Harsha Shoka. But it was very, very prescient. So he gives his the bowl of milk to his wife, and sure enough she gets pregnant, and he has this wonderful little boy. Now, what happens is, you know, he's jubilant, you know, overwhelmed. There's great jubilation in the palace, you know. But then he had all these other co-wives, queens, who became envious, you know, because they were being neglected now, and the one wife who gave birth to the child. So, as it sometimes happens, palace intrigue, it even happened there, they go and they murder the child in the cradle. And so the nurse comes and sees it, and she starts wailing, and then Chitraketu finds out and describes him. He's going through the palaces, he's beating his head against the walls, you know, and it's just horrific. So he comes, and there's the dead body of the child, you know, and he's lamenting like anything. So there's the shoka. So Narada Muni comes and brings the child back to life, and the child starts preaching to Chitraketu. Says, look, whose son am I really? I've had hundreds of fathers, and I'm going to have hundreds of fathers. I was scheduled to be in this body for just a few hours and get it together, basically. You know, he's just preaching to him, giving him standard transcendental instruction. So it really shakes, you know, he's been through this trauma, and he's very submissive and receptive to the message, and so it just enlightens him, and he breaks his attachment to all of this kingship. He gives up his royal throne, and he goes to the forest, gets instructions from Narada on a prayer to chant in order to realize Vishnu. So very, very intensely he chants, and in 7 days, even better than Dhruva. Dhruva just took 6 months, which is nothing, but in 7 days he sees Vishnu. He realizes God. And he offers these wonderful prayers, which I don't have memorized. And then he goes off. He's in one of these heavenly planes, you know, and he's just traveling around. And he's chanting Hare Krishna, basically, and going on. And then he sees Shiva with Parvati. Now, Shiva sometimes it causes confusion because he does things that seem to be not so transcendental, like hanging out in crematoria and associating with ghosts and bhutas and pretas. And so in this case, he was sitting there, and there were all these sages around him and great souls, you know, and he was sitting, but he had his wife on his lap. So Chitraketu made some remark. Shiva didn't care, but Parvati, his wife, became very angry and cursed him to become a demon. So Chitraketu, being a transcendental, he took it as Krishna's will. And so then, later on, when the demigods were evicted from their heavenly planets. This happens periodically. And so they went to Vishnu to ask them, you know, what can we do, you know? So he said, okay, you approach the Dichi and make a thunderbolt. Indra has a thunderbolt weapon. You ask him for his body as a donation. And then from his bones, which are very powerful, you may, you know, have Indra make a thunderbolt weapon. So they do that. The Dichi refuses at first, but he's just joking. He says, I don't care. He's not attached to his body. He's a transcendentalist. So he donates his body, goes back to God at the soul. And then Indra makes this thunderbolt. So meantime, Indra has offended his spiritual master. That's why they lost the heavenly planets. And so they needed another one. And the other one, they went to this great sage named Tvashta, and he said, my son will do it for you. His name was Vishwarup. So Vishwarup became the spiritual master of the demigods, and they got their strength back, and they were fighting. But then Indra was spying on Vishwarup, and he saw that he had 3 heads. He happened to have 3 heads. And that he was offering some oblations to the demons as well as the demigods. In other words, he had dual loyalties. We have, I won't get into it, we have some of our people in Washington have the same thing. But, you know. So Indra, which he does periodically, he flew off the handle and cut off his heads. So Tvashta, the father, became enraged. Here I've encouraged my son to become your spiritual master, now he's dead. So he performed this big sacrifice to evoke a demon who would kill Indra. But he was so upset that he chanted one word wrong. This is the danger in material sacrifices. Where Hare Krishna, or our little Gita verses, Krishna doesn't mind you mischant a verse. You're trying. But if you're trying to do something material with that sacrifice and you mispronounce a verse, you may get the opposite. So instead of getting someone who would kill Indra, he got a demon who would be killed by Indra. And that was called Vritrasura. Vritrasura means someone who can like swallow the universe. So there's this big battle between Indra and Vritrasura. And Vritrasura is actually Chitraketu, got born as Vritrasura. So he's a devotee inside, but he looks like a big demon. So he's fighting with Indra, but he's hoping to be killed by Indra so that he could give up the Vritrasura body and go back to Godhead. And he's also a Brahmin. He's the son of a Brahmin, you see. So Indra, while fighting, says, what have I got myself into here? I realize now I'm going to commit another sin, killing a Brahmin, you know. But it was too late. So Vitrasura has these beautiful prayers. You know, he's being killed by Indra, and he's praying, my dear Lord, when will I see you again? I'm just like a little bird out of the nest, you know, like a huge demon with these very wonderful words. So that's the story of Vitrasura, and that was puzzling. As he was in the Vitrasura body, you know, one can understand, well, how is he a devotee? But the backstory is what I just told you in summary form. He's actually a devotee covered by a demon's body. So, and he just wanted to finish it and actually go back to Godhead. So, so it's time to get ready for the arti. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All right, so we'll pick that up in a couple of weeks. Monday after Balaram's appearance day.
Simple. Oh, for putting her on top. Yeah.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane
Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane
Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravan Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhaktacharya Chakarine Namaste Saraswate Devi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bol Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Radha. Jaya Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Radha. Gopalangirgo, Jaya Paramahansa Dravida Prabhu. Ashtoto Shri Madhava Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
ISKCON Church Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Paramahansa Dravida Church, Ashtoto Shri Madhava Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Amacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Thank you, Lord, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Guru Nityananda, Shri Siddhanta, Shri Vasari Gaur. Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopinath, Shyaman Prabhakar, Giri Govardhan. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Ganga Mehi ki jai, Yamuna Mehi ki jai, Tulsi Dev ki jai, Bhakti Dev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Transcendental Distribution ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Prabhupada ki jai, all glory to the Son of the Lord, all glory to the Son of the Lord, all glory to the Son of the Lord, all glory to the Guru and
Namaste Narasimhaya,
Namaste
Namaste Narasimhaya, Hiranyakashipo Vakshaha, Ashilatankanakamaye, Hipon Shinga Paraton Shingo, Yato Yato Yanitato Nisangha, Bahir Shingo Ringaye Shingo, Nasaya Madhin Sharanam Prapade, Karakamalavare Naka Amrita Shinha, Bhavita Hiranyakashipu Parambrindha, Bhakita Narangirita, Jagati Hare, Jagati Hare, Jai Gita Bhagavan ki jai, Bhagavan ki jai, Gopinande Hari
That's weird. And you shouldn't play until the end. Yeah. That's some more running? Yeah.
Thanks for trying.
So I don't know why they're on my sheet. You have to think of the fight.
This is what they do with tabla. Tabla. Paka. Paka. You're going over tabla. Paka, paka.
Okay, we have plates, we have cups, and we have spoons.
And we have ears. Festival.
And I'm still full from earlier. I'll bet it's a small portion. Well, it's no bigger than principle that you have to eat a full plate, you know. With you guys, it's hard to say. So Zachary, remember when you took a picture with the fruit?
Yeah.
What? Well. Yeah, exactly. Oh. Every month, huh? He thinks I can get a picture. You want a little more, or is it enough? That's plenty? Yeah, one of these small ones? Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
But no.
My keys, yeah. I have keychain, but no key. I have my new keychain, but no
Next
key.
5 days, I don't know how it's looking. Let's see.
Yeah.
5 days in a row. You know, there's not much you have to do to shave up, you know. I mean, you're already practically shaved off. Yeah, you put the T-lock on. Yeah. Oh, I had some on earlier. Yeah, I just kind of wore. I see it, you know. Yeah. How about a little milk? Huh? Yeah. And you got your jogging shirt there. What more do you need? Yeah. I'm going to purchase one tonight, actually, for Saturday. Fantastic, right? Yeah, it's going to be the first time wearing traditional devotional clothes. Yeah, you're going to look good in it, I can see. Oh, see.
Let me get it.
Okay. Oh, you. One more. That's not it. I thought you were just outside real quick. One or two.
You can go with the Prashant here, don't worry.
One. Prashant in there?
Yeah, not all the time, but just right now because we are in a hurry.
Okay. I'm going to have a little stuff in. I'm going to take whatever cookies. Cookies